Alrighty, everyone, welcome to tonight's Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jake Milham, joined by Jeremy Greco, a man who I think in another life leashed an awkward pet. Jeremy, would you leash a lizard or a turtle?
Sure, why not? I was leashed as a child. Why not? Leash them all. Leash everything.
Leashed as a child, sir. Have you been in therapy for that?
Of course.
You talked about that?
Of course not. I could never.
You could never. All right. So listen, we're not here to talk about therapy or reasons to go to therapy. But if you want some Kansas City Royals therapy, you can go to royalsreview.com and let all your feelings out. Let all those thoughts that are inside your head that you want to put on Twitter, just go and drop it in the comment section, especially on Jeremy's articles, because remember, the more you comment there, the more clicks he gets. Okay.
Is that true?
It is.
No.
It is.
Wild.
Because people go back and check the comments like, oh, I said this salacious thing about this article. Did anyone respond? Click on the article again. Boom. Engagement. We love it. But we're not here to talk about engagement. We're talking about the Kansas City Royals, which as we sit here today, we are less than 6 days away from the trade deadline. It is.
Yes.
It's sneaking up fast. Still very, very quiet overall.
Yes.
This might not be a massive trade deadline, but I do think that when the action starts, it's going to be quick and it is going to be heavy. Go ahead.
I'm starting to believe that July 1st, like all of the trades that would normally get done in the trade deadline are going to get done in one day.
In one day there? I thought the dang...
Or is it the 30th?
Yeah, I think it's the 30th, 6 p.m. Eastern on the 30th. No, I wanted to make sure I was on the same page with you.
And I mean, the other thing that I think about a lot is that there used to be, the post July 30th. So it used to be the deadline was always on the 31st, and then you had the waiver deadline on August 1st, and that was still good. Mm-hmm. That's no longer a thing. It wasn't last year either. I think that's part of what made the deadline so long and so heavy last year was everyone went, oh, we can't trade after this anymore.
We got to get it done now.
Right. And so it's a little weird that hasn't had a similar effect this year, but I do think that there will be a bunch of moves. We're going to see people, they're going to finally have to make a decision about whether they're competing or selling, at that point, and then they will make it, and I think a lot of talks have already been happening. Oh, yeah. So they'll just be like, all right, the decision's made. You said you wanted this guy, you'd give us that guy. You still do it? All right, let's go.
Well, and before we talk about the Royals a little bit, I do want to throw out my conspiracy theory. We have talked about Luis Rengifo a lot on this podcast.
Sure have.
And if you go back and you look at the dates, when Michael Garcia shifted to second base, there's no known reason, right? There was nothing given from the team, nothing from Q, nothing really, no insight.
Well, CJ Alexander got promoted, and he can only play third base.
Okay, true, fair enough. I did forget that coincided. But another thing that coincided when Michael moved back to third base was when Rengifo went on the IL. It was the exact same day. Yeah. And now, the same day that Rengifo is reinstated from the IL was yesterday when Garcia was playing second base. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe are the Royals honing in on him? I breaking news here, Jeremy. I do have a source that confirms the Royals are one of many teams in the running for Rengifo.
Oh, so we got sources.
Yeah, I know, right?
I want sources.
we're getting up there in the world.
That's always been my biggest confusion. I've been writing for Royals Review since 2016, and I'm like, how do I get sources?
How does one acquire these said sources?
But that actually, LinkedIn is a hell of a drug. That's a very interesting conspiracy theory. Rengifo would be a lot of fun. Switch hitter. Haven't had a switch hitter in a minute, so those are always a good time.
Drew Waters.
Haven't had a switch hitter in a minute, so that is always a good time. You'll note that Drew is not allowed to bat versus, I think it's righties usually.
Yeah, which is strange.
Anyway, very interesting. I think that you can counter that by pointing out that Nick Lofton hasn't played second base since then. And so Nick Lofton was in the lineup last night because they were facing the lefty Jordan Montgomery. But like the conspiracy, I do like that. I think that's fun. Maybe Nick Lofton could still play second base. It's not like he's an elite third baseman.
Right. There's so many different, I don't think there's a lot of different ways the Royals can attack the deadline. I do think that there are a lot of guys who are prime candidates to be moved off the 26-man roster if a trade does happen.
Nick Lofton and Adam Frazier off the top of my head.
Yeah.
What are they contributing to the team right now?
True. And
they're filling a lineup spot because MJ Melendez isn't available.
Exactly.
And they don't want to play Drew Waters. So another guy who can come off of the 26-man roster.
And I don't know what they're doing with Garrett Hampson and Dairon Blanco. I really don't. They both of them kind of seem redundant. I will say that again. I know we've seen both of them come into games several times this year, but I mean, like, come on, if you can add an impactful outfielder, like, don't you send Blanco down to AAA? That's what I think, at least. Yeah, well, so Hampson doesn't have any options left. So to get him off the 26-man roster, they would have to DFA him.
Oh, no.
Which would be awful. It would be. Yes, I know. I'm not defending Garrett Hampson, but I am saying Dairon Blanco has more roster flexibility than Garrett Hampson. But let's go ahead. I want to brush over some of the things that MLB insiders are saying about the Royals right now. We'll plug another podcast because we do support the community around here. Jack Johnson, we've had him on the podcast before, over at Locked On Royals, had a good in-depth look at the trade deadline and where the Royals could be attacking things. We're hearing from several different people. The Royals are active. This isn't just the Royals are winning and so they should be buyers. Several insiders are saying the Royals are active. They are. Jeff Passan calls them among the game's most active teams.
That's what I keep hearing too, and keep reading.
And it's so consistent that, like, I'm taking it as truth. We know how badly that can go for rumors and sources and stuff like that. But it is good to hear that the Royals are at least trying to improve. I don't think that they're going to be the big swingers. I don't think they're going to be up there with the Dodgers, trying to steal all the stars from the South side, apparently. Have you heard of those rumors, Jeremy, about the Dodgers trying for a package of Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert, and it's one other player. Like, all three of Chicago's. Yes, thank you. I think it was Pham, actually. All three of their biggest trade chips in one go, which would be absolutely insane to me.
If anybody could do it, it would be the Dodgers.
It would.
I've heard the Royals are very interested in Pham, Rengifo, and Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm over with the Marlins.
Yeah, and I'm curious how that Jazz Chisholm sweepstakes is going to shake out.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing.
Yeah, because I think his value was was much higher this time a month ago, and a lot of that, in my opinion, was off of name recognition. And now we're hearing the Phillies are out on him. The New York Yankees, who were in the race, I guess, they're out on him due to clubhouse fit concerns. And so, are the Royals in that same boat? Are they going to stay away from him simply because they don't want to throw the bullpen or the roster chemistry off?
And the difference between Pham and Chisholm in that regard is that Pham is a rental.
Yes.
So if he's going to cost less, he's older, and if he's a clubhouse problem, well, you have him for 2 months, you move on. How much damage can he do in 2 months? Probably not that much, not in this clubhouse. Chisholm, on the other hand, he's going to cost more because he's got more controllable years. Yep. And if he comes in and causes trouble for your clubhouse and you try to unload him, everyone's going to look at you and go, well, I'm going to pay you less than you paid.
Exactly. So I'm interested to see where they go. Jeremy, I'd like your response to this, but I think the list of priorities for the Royals still has to be, I don't care what position it is right now, leadoff batter.
Yeah.
Is where we're at. I think they need one more reliever at least. And I'm not talking go to the who just got DFA'd and trade for them. I'm talking they do need a marginal difference maker in the relief role, and then you can start looking at positions. Outfield would be the third for me. What are your trade priorities for the Royals, Jeremy?
Leadoff hitter and one more reliever. That's all I'm. Leadoff hitter who can play multiple positions, preferably, so you can kind of flex him around wherever you need him to be. Again, somebody like Rengifo, I think, makes a lot of sense in that regard, in that you can play him at third. You can play him at second. You can play him in left, and those are kind of the places where somebody can play, and then you can mix and match Michael Garcia, Michael Massey, MJ Melendez, kind of around that. Probably don't want a primary DH just because that makes it harder. Because when you want to try and get Fermin and Salvi in, or Salvi over at first, Vinny as a DH. So that might that might mean JD Martinez is out. I haven't actually heard anybody but me say JD Martinez.
Yeah.
So that does feel like that's probably not going to happen. The one reliever I keep hearing over and over again, everywhere I look, everywhere I read, is Yimi Garcia, who plays for the Blue Jays, who's having a very good year. So
yes,
he would be an interesting addition. I even, in a way that Hunter Harvey was not good enough to steal the closer position from James MacArthur, Garcia might be. Hunter Harvey is probably the best reliever in the bullpen right now, but he's not enough better to remove MacArthur from that closer role. Garcia might be enough better to remove MacArthur from the closer role if the Blue Jays are trading him, if the Royals can afford him.
Yes.
I saw a trade proposal from the guys over at Preston Farr's website. I cannot remember the name of it. Farm to Fountains, that proposed sending Will Klein and 2 other high-level relief prospects for Yimi Garcia. And I don't think I would pay that. I feel like if you're going to do that, then just let Will Klein have another shot at the big leagues. By the way, he struck out the side today for the Omaha Storm Chasers before we started talking.
I like it.
He probably deserves another shot. Walter Pennington deserves another shot. So the Royals are only going to get one player leadoff hitter, because I do still think they have some bullpen guys that they should be giving shots to. And the biggest reason for trading for a bullpen guy is that it justifies when you cut someone like a Chris Stratton, for example, who I think might be the next guy in the chopping block. It's harder to justify that to yourself when you're like, well, we can promote Will Klein or Walter Pennington. But we could have done that before we signed him.
Exactly.
And if you trade for someone, it feels a little less bad. I don't know.
Well, and to double down on this, so when I say difference maker, I don't want a Chris Stratton level acquisition.
Certainly not. We already have Chris Stratton.
Exactly. We already have Chris Stratton, but we also have other guys who their floor is a Chris Stratton-esque level of production. I think Walter Pennington can come back up and give you similar production, if not better. I think Will Klein could do the same. Evan Sisk, I think, could also, if he's given a shot, he could do the same. But that takes me back to, I was chatting with someone on Royals Facebook about this. They were talking about going and getting James Paxton. While James Paxton, he does have a lot of starting experience, things like that. He doesn't have the stuff right now. His post-surgery, he's not the same pitcher. But if you're going to go out and get someone, who's going to clearly raise the water line of the Royals bullpen. You don't want, I'm tired of these situational guys, and I get it. We talked about early on in the spring, I guess, about how this bullpen was going to be matchup based. Well, I'm sorry, a deck of cards has 4 aces for a reason. Okay, you got to be able to pull out one of those aces every now and then. And I'll say this, Jeremy, Chris Bubich kind of looks like one of those aces, doesn't he?
Yeah. So you got Chris Bubich, you got Hunter Harvey in there right now. One interesting idea that I've only really heard from Lesky is to trade for another starting pitcher.
Yeah,
actually,
he did bring that up.
Because these guys are all kind of approaching career highs in innings pitched. And you have to question how far past that can they go. If you did add another starting pitcher, Alec Marsh could move to the bullpen, and he's pitched effectively as a multi-inning reliever. And you'd have to think he could be very effective as a single inning reliever or even a 2-inning reliever. That would be an option too if they can't find a reliever that they want to pay the price for. They can find another starter that they want to look at and say, hey, Alec, you're doing good stuff. I know you've had a couple rough starts, but you still have the stuff to succeed. Go to the bullpen for now. Maybe we look at you again next spring.
Yeah.
And also, Alec Marsh probably going to be starting for this team. If they make the postseason, he's going to end up in
Exactly.
the bullpen. You usually go down to a 4-man rotation, and he would seem to easily be the odd man out in that situation. It would be between him and Waka, I would think, and Waka doesn't have the oomph to really sparkle in the bullpen the way that Marsh does. So I think that makes a lot of sense there. And Walker's pitched better as a starter anyway. So
for sure.
If they and so that would be an interesting thing is if you can add a starter of Marsh's quality, and then you move Marsh to the bullpen, you've improved your bullpen and added and taken some stress off of your rotation.
Yeah.
You could also go to a 6-man rotation if you thought that was a good idea.
Which, I mean, in my little Royals fantasy land, if the team isn't worried about Bubich's elbow, about his recovery, if he is clearly 100% back and they believe that, then I would love to see a 6-man rotation from them with him in the fold. I think that would help the bullpen play up, because we did, honestly, we're recording this right before the final game in the Diamondback series. I didn't say that earlier. The bullpen has looked good.
Well, bullpen hasn't had to pitch much.
Exactly. Well, that's the point, though.
For the White Sox series, the bullpen had to pitch a grand total of 4 innings.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you have more, if you stretch out the rotation a little bit more, it helps the bullpen play up. That's what I was trying to get at. But
assuming that stretching out the bullpen more actually lets your starters go deeper into games.
Fair.
If you stretch out your bullpen and you still got Alec Marsh or Brady Singer, who we do need to talk a little bit more about Brady Singer. But in the past, he's been one of those guys who only goes 5 innings because his pitch count just gets up there. Then it doesn't help you.
Exactly. So yeah, we will be talking about Brady Singer's start later on in the show. But wrapping up the trade deadline stuff, if you want to hear more about possible Royals targets, the approach, prospects that we could be trading away, go check out RoyalsReview.com. I know Max is starting to put out some of the potential trade target articles. So those will be good deeper insights into possible targets for your Kansas City Royals. And those are only at RoyalsReview.com.
Before we move on.
Yes.
Favorite hitter, favorite reliever.
A favorite hitter and favorite reliever?
For adding at the deadline. Guys that seem like they're likely that the Royals could add them. And thinking also preferably about what you think it would cost to get them.
Okay, I will. Man, I'm not going to make a whole lot of friends on this one. I like Mike Tauchman, who is currently with the Chicago Cubs.
Okay.
He's a 33-year-old outfielder. Not a whole lot of club control left, but I think he is the guy that they can go and get for within their budget, so to speak, and get it done. A 716 OPS with bases empty. Let's see here. I'm getting down to his batting first. 748 OPS when batting first for the Chicago Cubs. That is where he has had the primary duties. When he's leading off an inning, he has an 840 OPS. With the Cubs leaning towards being sellers, I like him as a target for reliever. If the Royals can afford it, I think the Miami Marlins reliever Tanner Scott is the only way to go. That would be the guy that comes in and says, okay, this is a late inning guy. This is not a matchup guy. This is a guy who can come in any situation and has a good chance of dominating the opposition. So those are just 2 off the top of my head. I'm keeping an eye on rumors and things like that and trying to see it's right now, it's more about which team is actually selling or not. That's the struggle. Jeremy, do you have a hitter and a reliever off the top of your head?
So I'm gonna go probably hitter and say, let me check these numbers real quick again. Obviously, I think we both are fans of Rengifo and Pham, but one guy that I haven't heard a lot of love for that I don't think I would hate is Jesse Winker with the Washington Nationals. He's got a 130 WRC plus on the year and a 376 OBP. He would be, and he plays the outfield, plays left field primarily. So I think he would be an excellent add for looking for a leadoff hitter. And then as far as a reliever goes, I'm probably thinking about Tanner Scott's a great pick. Yimi Garcia's a great pick. Hector Neris, Carlos Estevez are a couple guys that I think about a little bit.
Okay. Interesting.
the Rangers have some guys too. David Robertson,
Yeah.
Kirby Yates are both out there. It's really hard to pick a reliever, because let's be honest, Mason Miller's not walking through
No.
that door. My next favorite is probably Lucas Erceg,
Okay.
also probably not walking through that door. He would be very expensive. So
I do want to add a caveat to that. So the thing that is interesting about Urseg is the fact that yes, he is having a great performance so far this year, but it is easy to forget that he's almost a 30-year-old reliever in his second major league season because he's a former position player. He's a position player converted to relief pitcher. If the Athletics are being, I don't know, if they wanted to be even more frugal by their standards, I think that they would be wise to sell high on Urseg, especially when you look at his stats from last year. He was not as dominant as he is right now. So I think Urseg can be had for a price, and I think that would be a good target.
one final word on this, and then I will let us move on, is I don't hate the idea of the Royals going out and getting a reliever who's been fairly successful but not elite, who doesn't have a slider. Show me a reliever who's been successful but not elite but doesn't have a slider, and get him for fairly cheap, and I will get excited about that, because I'm a big believer in the Royals telling guys, throw a slider, and suddenly you're very good.
Yeah.
It keeps happening, and I love it, and let's keep it going for sure.
They can't keep getting away with it.
The Royals pitching development, I think we're kind of at the very beginning of, people talk about the Dodgers pitching development. They talk about the Rays pitching development. They talk about the Guardians pitching development. We might be on the ground floor of the Royals pitching development becoming talked about in the same way, with the way that they've turned some of these guys around. Michael Wacha, Cole Reagans, James MacArthur. It's just, we could be looking at a very bright future in Kansas City if that is in fact what's happening here.
Exactly. So moving on to something that affects all Royals fans who are going and seeing games at Kauffman Stadium. Let's talk about this new facial recognition ticketing system that they have. So what it is, this thing's been in development for about 2.5 years now. And what fans do is they download the MLB Ballpark app and they take a selfie. And it's like you just take the selfie on game day, I think it is. And what it does is you go through these certain gates and it scans your face and it just lets you in and you're good. Now, Jeremy, this is, we're in 2024. 1984 is looking a little bit more realistic every now and again. Now, of course, big MLB is saying, oh, we don't store any images of fans. So as soon as that selfie is captured, it's converted into an alphanumeric token and the image is discarded. Jeremy, I want to get your thoughts on this just briefly. Like, I'm probably a little too paranoid to use something like this, but I can see the benefits for folks who don't care about it,
Yeah, so there's a few things there, and I might be a little hypocritical because I absolutely took a selfie to put my face into MLB The Show. But yeah, your face is PII, what we call in the biz personal identifiable information. And you don't want to give that away to just anybody. Where I work, we have very strict rules about how we can and cannot use PII and what PII we can store and how we have to secure it if we do. Would be very leery of giving my face to the Royals.
Yeah.
Especially, if you're the kind of person who likes to go to protests or something like that, where, you're already kind of on law enforcement's radar, just because we don't know what's going to happen in our society. It's sometimes, maybe I'm a little alarmist, maybe I'm a little tinfoil hattish, but it does feel like we are heading inevitably closer to this kind of 1984 society. And I would avoid setting myself up for that. Thinking about this now, I do kind of regret taking a picture of my face for MLB The Show. Maybe I'll go in there and delete that. But also the reassurance that they don't keep the image, that doesn't mean much to me, because if you've got a token that can be compared to an image of your face, That is essentially like, what do you think an image is? It's just data.
Yep.
It's just data that a computer could read and recreate into an image.
Exactly.
So if they've got something that they can recreate into identifying your face, that it's the same thing. So that's not meaningful to me. This means it's not stored as a JPEG file or something on their hard drives.
Exactly.
And then finally, I wonder how good this can actually be. I know there's been a lot of questions about the effectiveness of facial recognition. My phone has facial recognition on it, and it cannot identify me if I'm wearing sunglasses. So people showing up to the stadium in sunglasses seems like a thing a lot of people do. Play a lot of baseball in the sunlight. Even night games start at, the sun's still out. And then of course facial recognition. I saw an article that was, I know this has been a long time thing, but I saw an article that still said it was relevant at least as far as 2023, where facial recognition isn't very good at identifying non-white people.
Correct. Yeah, I remember that.
So, how many people is this convenient for? And then finally, I have a question about one of the things I remember reading, and correct me if you saw something different.
Okay.
Is that, you only need one person's photo, and then it will let your whole party in. People are going to use that to try and sneak into the stadium along with you, or will they succeed, or will they just gum up the works? What is that gonna look like? It's supposed to speed things up. It's supposed to add convenience. I'm not convinced the convenience it adds is worth all the potential problems. If you want to try it, go for it. I just don't think I.
Yeah, and I do want to say this to all of our listeners. If you've used this system, or if you know of someone who's used this system, it doesn't have to be a Kauffman Stadium. It could be at any one of the MLB ballparks who are using it. We would love to hear that experience because, frankly, they're not installing this down in the AAA stadium down the road from me, okay? Like, this is some big money stuff. So please drop us a line, drop a comment on the episode if you have a good, bad experience, or if you're just paranoid about it. For more of the efficiency that you're talking about, Jeremy, Big MLB does say it's 68 times faster to get through the line if it was all just facial recognition.
68 times.
What'd you say?
I don't know about that. 68 times. 68 times what?
For one person that can get through the line, 68
How
other
long
ones
does it take to get
through
the line?
I don't know.
This is the part where I admit I haven't been to an MLB game since 2019, 2018. I don't remember. It did not take me that long to get in. And I was at Turner Field in Atlanta. The traffic was messed up, but once I got through the traffic, it did not take me long. And I bought a ticket at the stadium, and it didn't take me that long.
See, that's perfect. But yeah, it's me personally. I'm with you, Jeremy. I'm a little too skeptical, a little too paranoid to try this myself. But if you've tried it, please let us know. Now let's get to some more on the field stuff. So the big kerfluffle this week was Monday night's game where Bobby Wood Jr. almost got that cycle, the first Royal cycle since 1990 when George Brett did it. He comes up for that pesky single. It's so hard to just
especially
stop
for Bobby Wood Jr.
It's so hard to stop at just one base, when you could take 2, 3, or just take all 4 at the same time.
Yes.
But he came up for that single, and lo and behold, he gets hit by a pitch on the first pitch. Got Salvador Perez really riled up. Haven't seen him that mad in quite some time personally, and it all devolved from there. Players tried to handle it themselves on the field with a little ticky-tack, and unfortunately, the Diamondbacks manager did not like that, did not like the warnings being issued following that, which my gut reaction says that's the only time to issue the warnings.
Okay, so the warnings got issued after Schreiber hit Moreno. Right.
Yeah.
Issue the warning after Bobby gets beamed. Excuse me, not beamed. I was corrected. I wrote an article about this, and I was corrected. Beaning is only when you get hit in the head. Otherwise, it's just a hit by pitch. Okay,
good to know.
So let's keep our terminology straight.
Why, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm going to have to work through because I've just been using beamed,
it's so much easier
irrespective of body part for years.
But yeah, that was the big drama. I mean, what'd you think about it, Jeremy?
Yeah. So listen, Castellanos did not mean to hit Bobby.
Yeah,
it sucks. A lot of people said he shouldn't be pitching inside there if he can't control his pitches and a guy's going for. Come on, people! He's trying to win a game.
Yeah.
Angel Zerpa's hit a few people. Are we going to tell him he's not allowed to throw inside anymore? Come on! One more time. Come on! That's a ridiculous take. He did not mean to hit him, and it's very upsetting, absolutely, because we wanted to see the first cycle in more than 30 years.
Exactly.
Everybody wanted to see that. Salvi wanted to see it. We all wanted to see it. It sucks, but it was an accident. Accidents happen. At the point that to my mind, in an ideal world, to the point that the Royals were obviously upset about it, that's when you issue the warning, because you know the Royals are going to want to come back and hit him. It's obvious. Everyone's talking about it at that point. Yeah, it's going to happen. Like, it's inevitable. So if you really want to stop intentionally throwing at people, issue the warning then. And then if you really want to hit a guy, you hit him and you take your losses. Your Schreiber's ejected, your manager's ejected. They both get suspensions and you move on with your life. But MLB doesn't want, and of course, would have been very upset if that had happened, because it makes it harder for his team to play, because he can't throw inside now. His pitchers are not allowed to throw inside, because if they hit somebody, it's going to be a problem. And I get it, but we can't keep this going like this, where everybody just throws at each other, and that's fine. If I had a machine, because I can't throw 90 miles an hour. If I had a machine, Jacob, and I went out and somebody upset me, and I pointed it at them from 60 feet or so away, and I fired a baseball at them at 90 plus miles an hour from 60 feet away, they would call that assault.
Yes,
do you think that was an okay way for me to behave?
No.
Okay, so why is it okay on a baseball field? I argued in my article that what we should do is what they have in Japan, which is, in Japan, if you didn't mean to hit him, you tip your cap, you do a little bow, you apologize, he moves on, everybody's good. And then if they didn't mean to hit him, they don't do that. And then a fight starts, and you take your consequences. In MLB,
that's assault too.
Yeah, it is. So, but like, at least own up to what you're doing, right?
Okay,
don't come over here and be like, oh, I didn't mean to hit him, I'm throwing inside. And this is where I'm frustrated, because when I look at John Schreiber throw that pitch that hit Gabriel Moreno, I'm like, I'm not sure he meant to hit him. John Schreiber didn't look to me like a man who was like, yep, I hit him. Cool. He looked like a man who was like, dang it, that one, I had him and that one got away from me. I was doing good this inning. You know, he didn't look like a person who was like super upset. Castellanos was upset. Like, he was bent over the mound, like clutching his head, like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Schreiber was more, well, oops. And so I can see where some people look at that nonchalance and go, well, he meant it, he's faking it. And maybe that's true, but I could also see a scenario where he was like, well, I don't mind that I hit him there. I wasn't trying to, but I also don't hate it. You know, it's so frustrating to me that everyone wants to have it both ways.
Yeah.
They don't want their guy to get hit, but they want to be able to hit the other guy. And it didn't happen, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But I could see a scenario where the Diamondbacks, knowing that Castellanos didn't mean to hit Bobby, but assuming that the Royals did mean to hit Moreno, say, well, we got to get our vengeance. And then the Royals say, well, you've hit out two of our guys, so now we got to get our and everybody's throwing at everybody, and suddenly people are getting hurt, people are getting suspended. I don't want that. It's not happening. Thank you. Glad that the cooler heads eventually prevailed. But this is just silly to have people throwing 90, 95, 100 mile an hour fastballs, even at people's ribs. And of course, there are people saying Schreiber was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. He should have thrown it at his head. And you are scary. I am terrified of you people. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want y'all to have the pitching machine where you just walk around and fire it at anybody. Okay. Like those are the people I'm scared of. Yeah. Listen, in the moment, you know, considering what was quote unquote at stake in that AB, like it's not like that AB was going to cost the Royals the game. Okay. And Bobby still came around and scored, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter, but I did get caught up in it. I was like, oh my gosh, he
Oh,
did this on
I got
purpose.
caught up too. I immediately assumed that Castellano must have thrown at him intentionally. It was only when I watched the replay and I saw how Castellano was reacting after throwing that pitch that I realized he absolutely did not. And I think if the Royals, I think they probably, had the same immediate reaction, but they didn't watch the replay.
No, no, they were reacting in real time.
And a lot of people said to me, and so here's the thing where I'll stop ranting for a second and let you talk, Jacob.
Okay.
A lot of people said to me, well, what are the Royals supposed to do there? They gotta say that you can't throw at our guy. I think we're all pretty ready to admit that the Diamondbacks didn't intentionally throw at Bobby Witt. So what do you have to prove by throwing at Gabriel Moreno?
True. Okay, that's fair. Hey, let's go ahead and talk about the guy who got hit, though, Bobby Witt Jr., who is just doing electric stuff, as always, Jeremy.
Yeah.
He really is.
Fine. He only had one hit last night.
Yeah.
What a bum.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my gosh. Where's 3-hit Witt, okay? Where's he at? Where'd he go? No, but in all seriousness, he still did tie Johnny Damon for the second longest 3-hit streak in franchise history, of course, only trailing the one and only George Brett. Listen, Bobby we talked about a couple podcast episodes ago that Texas was kind of Bobby Witt Jr. superstar coming out party. Well, now he's following it up with, oh, you shouldn't do the home run derby. It's going to mess up your swing, and it's going to mess up the rest of the season. Okay, the man's hitting above 500 in the last 7 games. What is he doing since the All-Star break, huh? What is he doing since then?
Somebody, do not remember where I heard this. It was probably on some clip I saw on YouTube. Somebody said that Juan Soto once actually argued that the home run derby can fix your... Oh, it was on a Royals broadcast.
Was it really?
I think this was probably Ryan Lefevre. Juan Soto once thought that you could fix someone's swing with a home run derby. It might have been Lusky. I don't know. My brain is weird. Because, and the argument then continued, could Bobby Witt Jr.'s swing be improved by having played in the Derby? Because the one thing hasn't really offered from the plate as much this year is pull power. And we've seen plenty of pull power since the Derby. And of course, he exhibited lots of pull power in the Derby that he almost won.
Right.
So there was some thought that maybe Bobby lacked confidence in how much power he actually has. And so he was willing to kind of go for it. And after the home run derby, maybe his swing is improved because he goes, oh, I do have the power to compete like that.
Yeah, and he's proven it so far against the since the All-Star break. So since the All-Star break in 5 games, 13 for 19, good for a 684 batting average with 7 runs scored, 6 extra base hits, and 7 RBI to his name. Good for a 1.263 slugging percentage and a 1.977 OPS. Absolutely love that. And since he's unlike other shortstops in the AL, specifically starting ones in the All-Star game, Bobby Witt Jr. can get it done in both facets of the field. He's a elite defender and a great batter. Right now, he leads MLB in FWAR at 6.8, and then also leads the league in hits, is tied with Juan Soto for first in runs, ranks second in batting average to Steven Kwan, and third in extra base hits with 56.
He's right behind Kwan now.
He is.
Before the All-Star break, he was like 20 points behind.
Mm-hmm. Now Kwan's at 347, Bobby's at 340 as of this recording, so it is a good race to be watching. And, we're not on Triple Crown watch or nothing like that with Bobby Witt Jr. But, I mean, like we always talked about the raw power and the speed and things like that. The hit tool was always an underrated facet of his game. But, golly, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, Bobby Witt Jr. is a superstar.
Yeah.
Let's admit it.
In every sense of the term, because as I kind of defined in that article after the home run derby last week, to be a superstar, you need to have superstar level talent.
Yeah.
But you also have to bring a little bit of personality to it, which I guess isn't really necessarily a great argument, because I do think Mike Trout is a superstar without having that personality necessarily. But the personality helps, I think, a lot. Yeah. And Bobby's personality it's more visible. Like he's been coming out of his shell a little bit this year, but after the home run derby, I kind of looked at the whole year in a new way and saw that personality coming out. And so now when I watch him have his post-game interview and he talks about the boys are playing some ball, like that it has more impact on me than it did before. So this is just a delight. It feels a lot watching Bobby take at bats right now or field balls. Honestly, feels a lot like watching Patrick Mahomes throw the football on the other side of the parking lot, which I didn't to have both of these guys playing like this in Kansas City at the same time. We are so lucky as Kansas City sports fans. I just want to sit back sometimes and just be like, man, I've gone from rooting for Dean Palmer and Elvis Gerbach to Bobby Witt Jr. and Patrick Mahomes II. Both sons of major league pitchers with long careers. How about that? Isn't that crazy?
Maybe that's the key to success. Go pitch in the major leagues. It's a pretty hard key to success, if you ask me. One guy who found his key to success in a recent start is Brady Singer, who was messing around with his sweeper apparently in the bullpen and said, "Yeah, let's go try this out in the game."
Not just missing. So he's been throwing a sweeper this year.
He has.
But he found a new grip apparently on Twitter.
Apparently so.
And was just like, yeah, let's try it. And he loved it so much that he used it that night in the game. And what I love about this is not just how good that sweeper was. It was very good. A very, very good sweeper.
It was.
But what I love is the willingness to make a change without farting around about it, without complaining about it, and just go out there and say, yeah, let's do something. And to be confident in it and to be effective in it. And it worked. 7 shutout innings. Was it shutout innings or did he give up one run? I don't remember.
No, it was shutout innings because he followed up.
Yeah, 7 shutout innings. Gave up one more hit, one more walk, whatever. 7 shutout innings and looked as good as he's ever looked while he was doing it.
Yeah.
And people were looking stupid on that sweep.
They were. So just to give a little bit of clarity, because if you go to his baseball savant page and look at his most recent start, you're only going to see 5 sweepers. It's like, well, guys, why are we ranting and raving about 5 sweepers? Well, the issue is since he's still tinkering with it, the shape and the result looks a lot like his slider, apparently. So Andy Rogers had a great write-up about this, the process and the results ultimately, and that is what she said explicitly. StatCast only registered 5 of the pitches, but several were still labeled under his traditional tight slider.
Yeah.
And I also liked how she put one thing about Brady being stubborn typically. She said, quote, "But something clicked for the typically strong-willed Singer," and he went with it. So, but hey, the results speak for themselves. This just speaks more to the pitching coaching staff that you were talking about earlier on, Jeremy.
I think this speaks a lot to Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha's influence as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those pitching powwows or whatever they have after, everybody starts. I know I said early on, felt like Singer was not a strong participant in them. He's definitely been a strong participant recently. Yes. And I may have misread him earlier. I'll admit that I've been wrong before. So bringing that attitude of Seth Lugo throwing 9 pitches and being like, Brady, you could probably throw a couple more pitches and it wouldn't kill you, buddy. And bringing an inquisitiveness and a thoughtfulness to our pitchers, I think is a huge, probably underrated aspect of those signings to really just kind of influence the whole staff. I can't say enough about how great the Seth Lugo, who had a complete game win on Sunday, right? Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha signings those were good signings.
They were good signings. They were amazing signings. Let's be honest on it. There are several other pitchers out there getting paid more than those guys combined that are not producing at the level of one of them.
Yep.
So, and one more thing on Brady Singer. I mean, like this time last year, we would not have seen a start where Singer would have 5 different registered pitches.
Yep.
Okay. He had 5 in his most recent start, and that is a part of that clubhouse chemistry that we don't want any trade acquisition to throw off because it's so valuable. And we're seeing it manifest with these younger players.
I'm going to go on the record and say I'm not really super concerned about clubhouse chemistry.
Okay.
1, winning solves a lot of chemistry problems. 2, I think they have strong leaders in there now with Lugo and Salvi. Salvi's not just doing it by himself anymore. He's got Lugo on the pitching side. He's got Vinny and Bobby to help him out as position players. Waka's probably a quieter leader. I think Will Smith, I think, is probably a good leader in the bullpen. So I think they're probably set for like handling kind of clubhouse culture stuff. And I think that Matt Quatrero, I'm gonna say the biggest thing that a manager does in my mind is manage the personalities in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
More than anything, because honestly, managing the strategy on the field is not difficult. And if your team is good, then a lot of the choices you make don't matter. And if your team is bad, a lot of the choices you make don't matter. So managing the personalities is the biggest thing. That's one of the reasons Ned Yost, not great tactically, but he managed those personalities perfectly. And so I think Quatrero has been very good at managing those personalities too. I know a lot of people complain that he doesn't get fiery enough, but I also think he sees that as wasted effort, and I'm kind of with him. Like you're gonna go the home run that wasn't against Cole Reagan's with the Guardians. He could go and yell at the umpires and get ejected. Sure, what would that really accomplish?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
The umpire couldn't do anything about it if he wanted to. It went to New York. The New York umpire, he maybe he got on the phone and yelled at the umpires afterward that he actually meant something. But like there are times where getting ejected can fire up your team. But a lot of times getting ejected is just a pointless waste of everyone's time. And we would like to play this game and go home now, please.
Yep, absolutely. So let's, Jeremy, we're going to have a quick lightning round on the rest of these points that we wanted to get through today.
There's a lot happening,
there is.
Actually. There's one thing that didn't even make our list that we need to talk about, too.
Oh, what's that?
Jack Coglione.
Oh, yes, signed.
He should be introduced tonight.
At any given moment. Yeah, I'm hoping that they introduce him tonight. The Royals have not put out a press release yet on it, but they did announce via social media that they signed the 6th overall pick to a deal. I haven't seen any terms. I haven't seen any other details in regards to it. That camp has been fairly quiet throughout this process, but I am hopeful that everybody's happy and he could hit the ground running. Emphasis on hit, Jack. That's what we want you to do. We want you to hit
the baseball.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, if he just hits the ground with his bat, that's not going to do us a lot of good.
No, it's not. And poor bat at the end of the day. But yeah, so congratulations. A major step in anyone's career getting signed to that initial deal. So congratulations.
Which means, and that does mean that the Royals have officially signed 17 of their players.
Yes.
Actually, Grote still hasn't officially signed.
Correct. He has not.
They've likely signed 18 of their 20 draft picks. The other two, a lot of questions about whether those guys will sign, but they got the big ones.
Yes, that they did. And the 3 guys who are remaining in the draft class unsigned are all the prep players. So I am sure that now that they have Jack locked up, they can go and attack those prep players a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more certainly, if you will. Some other lightning round stuff. If you are a Comcast subscriber, you might want to watch out. You might be able to watch the Kansas City Royals again. So since May, Diamond Sports Group's regional sports networks, namely Bally's, have not been carried on Comcast Xfinity, and now they're nearing a deal, according to Diamond Sports lawyer Brian Herman, saying, quote, "We believe we have made substantial progress on resolving our issues with Comcast, and we have the intention of fully documenting and executing an agreement with Comcast to broadcast our regional sports networks in the very near term." Now, this is like a widespread thing throughout Major League Baseball. More than a third of the fan bases who subscribe to Comcast cannot watch their team. And oddly enough, 4 of the 5 AL Central teams, like there's only 12 MLB teams who are affected by this, and 4 of them are in the AL Central. So I don't know what that says, but I'm looking forward to that being back. We very much advocate for a more accessible baseball product here on the podcast, and that being that being an issue is just ridiculous.
It continues to boggle my mind, Jacob, that it's easier for you and I living on the East Coast to get access to Royals games than it is for people living in Kansas City.
Precisely. It is crazy. Let's see here. What's the next thing? MLB is now offering a standalone streaming option and will be included if you already have MLB TV. So I will say that I've been an MLB TV subscriber for quite a while now, and that has kind of grinded my gears. I can't just go flip on MLB Network and watch whatever they have going on. So if I'm looking at this correctly,
yeah, I wanted to watch the Brett documentary, and I could not get my hands on it any which way or form.
Exactly. So for $6.99 a month, which is not bad, you can get MLB Network's content, free feature of the at-bat subscription, live game audio for all 30 MLB teams, and live minor league games, and access to MLB Big Inning. I feel like for Kansas City Royals fans, this is a great supplement to whatever streaming option they have to watch the Royals.
And you said it's included in the MLB TV?
Yes, as of right now.
Sweet. Maybe I can find that Brett documentary and finally watch it.
Yep, it says current and future paid subscribers of MLB TV's all teams package and single team package in the United States can stream MLB Network for the remainder of the 2024 season.
Sweet.
So that'll be very, very good. Good news there. Like we said, more accessible game. And I get it. MLB Network gets a lot of grief sometimes. They're still solid. I think that out of all of the league specific networks out there, I think they're the best. NFL Network does have their only saving grace is NFL Films in my mind.
My dad watches the Chiefs Super Bowl wins on repeat on the NFL Network.
There are worse things to watch on repeat, I will say. Another note, Ty France was designated for assignment from the Seattle Mariners, which, there's a lot of players DFA'd around the league every now and then, but France was always an all-star against the Kansas City Royals. Yes. So, Jeremy, should they go out and acquire the veteran first baseman?
If he'll take a minor league deal, sure.
Yeah, you like that?
He also has played third and second in his career.
Okay.
So if he's a guy who's like, yeah, I'll come over there and the Royals can see if they can figure out what happened to his swing and help him get it squared away. And then if he succeeds, bring him up to the big leagues to fill in some roster spots. But I don't see that happening probably.
Okay. Last note before we get to our Royals reviews, Jeremy, you pointed this out a couple of days ago. So what was going on with the St. Louis Cardinals dugout celebration?
So I think it was Sunday. We saw a couple of celebrations, home run celebrations around the league that people kind of were like, what is going on with political celebrations all of a sudden? So we had Taylor Walls of the Tampa Bay Rays did kind of a Trump themed celebration. And then he tried to say it wasn't Trump, but that it was. So very weirdly compared his baseball career, the failed assassination attempt against the Republican candidate. So he was like, yeah, he's had some adversity, and I feel like in some way I've had similar adversity. So Taylor Walls is a little off his rocker. I'm not gonna lie, that guy, I don't know what to do about him. That's special, man. And the Cardinals, they were putting a hand over an ear and extending a fist in the air. And so some people thought, is that a reference to the photos that was taken right after he was nearly assassinated? They came on The Athletic later that day and said, no, that's a reference to Alec Burleson, who had hit the home run, is leading the team in home runs. It's a reference to his previous career as a DJ Biscuit, before he played for the Cardinals. Honestly, that one checks out for me. I think they're being honest there, because when you go back and look at the replay, the thing that is a little concerning for me is they said, we've been doing that for a while, since well before the failed assassination attempt. I could not find any video evidence of that. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just couldn't find any evidence of it. When I went back and looked at Burleson's home runs, recent home runs before that. Like, what you see is a bunch of different guys. They don't have their hand over their right ear. It was, Trump's right ear that was injured.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Some of them had it over their left ear. And of course, it was Trump's right ear that was injured, and his right fist that was in the sky. And
Mhm.
so they had hand on right ear, left fist in the sky, or left hand on ear, right fist in the sky.
Oh,
I do think that usually, like I've done, like definitely like a DJ, like
yeah.
you put a hand over your ear, you put a hand out kind of thing.
Mm.
Fist is a little like DJs don't do a fist; they do like a hand thing.
Yeah.
But
It's like that.
like yeah, so like a flat hand. So that I think they screwed up there a little bit, like. But also, or maybe they were afraid that if they did like a flat hand thing, it would look like a Heil.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Don't want to do that
Don't do
either,
that.
for sure. But I do believe that one. I know people think I'm a little credulous, especially after I said I'm not convinced that John Schreiber intentionally hit Gabriel Moreno, but believe that one. So that's the good news. The bad news is that almost every Major League Baseball player is kind of a conservative, political leaning kind of person. So if you don't want to root for baseball players with conservative political leanings, don't root for Major League Baseball players.
Yeah, we've talked about that ad nauseum on the podcast here. Hey, Jeremy, I'm sorry, I've got some late breaking news that I do need. I need you to go check the Slack channel while I bring up one more point. Last thing of note regarding the Royals is the fact that their top pitching prospect Ben Kudrna was called up to the AA Northwest Arkansas Naturals alongside infielder Jack Pineda. This should be both of their AA debuts, so congratulations to both of those players, and love seeing what Ben Kudrna is doing in the system. Jeremy, good friend Preston Fards absolutely ended John Heyman on X.
If only.
I wish he would drive him. I mean, we talked about John Heyman on the last podcast. All right,
Yeah.
He's got quite a following, quite a Rolodex of sources, if you will. But damn, this man just has some bad.
What's really funny to me is that this is not anything like this is something I could see fans who have had to watch Jordan Lyles pitch say. So John Heyman says, want to congratulate Jordan Lyles. If this is it for him, he made $53 million for a career negative 2.5 WAR. He may be only replacement level as a pitcher, but as a negotiator, he's top shelf. So like, I feel like fans could absolutely get behind that argument. Want to read Preston Farr's remarks? You want me to?
No, I got it. So Preston Farr said, I mean, you make a lot of money as a replacement level reporter, so I guess you speak from experience here. Woo! Imagine waking up and deciding to use their platform to be so unnecessarily negative.
So if I could offer Preston one quick note, the correct finish to that statement is imagine waking up and choosing violence.
Woo!
That's how you finish that one. That's how the kids say it.
Yes.
And you want to be
how
like
the children
kids,
say it?
I think.
I think so. That's how the children say it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I feel like a Royals fan, like, yeah, here's the difference between a Royals fan and John Heyman here, because I do think this is a thing that I would say about Jordan Lyles, and I don't think it would be problematic if I said it, and that's it, is I would be punching up. Comedy should always be punching up at somebody who is in a position of power over you. Jordan Lyles doesn't have power over me, but he does have $53 million more than I do. So in that situation, I'm punching up. John Heyman, as a successful, well-paid, as Preston points out, media member, is not punching up. He's punching sideways more than anything. And so that's why it comes off as a lot more mean-spirited than it would have if a fan had said that.
Yeah, and I do think this is what irks me the most, because this is facts. Okay, these are numbers. I get that. The timing and the tone is what bothers me.
The timing is important too. Absolutely, go on.
Yeah, well, I'm more focused on the tone than the timing personally. So maybe you could tell me how the timing is important here in a second, because just with Lyles getting released. It is, and we don't know the reason why he was absent from the team.
Well,
don't know
if he's been dealing with personal issues.
Yeah,
we don't know what those personal issues are. We don't need to know. No. But he was dealing with personal issues, and so to then come after him like that when he was missing for months, because he was with the Royals in Arizona for the last month, apparently.
Yeah, apparently so.
But before that, he was away from the team for weeks, if not months, dealing with whatever that personal issue is. That sounds like a pretty serious personal issue for it to take that amount of time to deal with. Maybe that's not the right time to go after somebody, is when they're struggling that much.
Right. exactly. So, yeah, Preston Farr 1, John Heyman -1. All right, we are going to go ahead and get to our Royals reviews this evening. Jeremy, I'm going to hit mine off real quick. So you shared this TikTok with me, and I talked about the Tales from the Sidelines book regarding the Chiefs that I read a couple of podcast episodes ago. I love filling in my lacking franchise specific knowledge, and this did this. So Jeff Pearlman, a notable sports book writer and sports journalist, has been around for a long time. New York Times bestseller. He had a very interesting TikTok, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about a certain Royals manager. Let's go ahead and play that real quick.
So, the least liked manager I ever covered, and I don't even think it's close, was a guy named Tony Muser, who managed the Kansas City Royals from 1997 to 2002. Never had a winning season. In his defense, had no pitching to work with, but players hated him. Just hated him. He was a horrible communicator, a very gruff and grumpy guy, overly critical of players. Would kind of slog his players in the media subtly, which wasn't cool. They had a young prospect, a sort of DH outfielder named Mark Quinn out of Rice University, who was really talented. And Muser hated the kid, thought he was way too cocky, and kind of buried him. And not just buried him, shit all over his confidence. And he was just that kind of manager. I always was fine with him, dealing with him as a media guy, but players could not stand him. Definitely the least popular manager I covered from a player standpoint was Tony Muser.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Tony Muser. I know he is in that long lineage of awful Royals managers, but see, like I didn't know that, so I thought that was cool. This is why you go support individual sports journalists out there, because they have insights like that.
Yeah, Muser was a manager when I started rooting for the Royals back in 1998.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm familiar with him. He's kind of most famous, or perhaps infamous, for saying that he needed guys who could pound tequila, not just eat milk and cookies, which was taken as a criticism against Mike Sweeney, who very strong in his Christian beliefs, etc. I didn't know that about Muser. I knew Muser was considered gruff. I did not know that he damaged Mark Quinn's confidence. I knew that Mark Quinn looked really good for a while, and then got hurt with a kung fu accident with his brother.
Oh, that's right.
And then kind of vanished. If that's all true, and I have no reason to think that it isn't, that's kind of a bummer. You kind of wonder how much better the Royals might have been in the early 2000s without Tony Muser damaging players' confidence in that way.
Absolutely true. That was on TikTok. Go follow him at Jeff Pearlman Author is his handle. Jeremy, over to you for your review.
So on Sunday, I reviewed the CrowdStrike down. Today, I wanted to give you CrowdStruck by Edward Zitrone in his newsletter, Where's Your Ed At? He has a really interesting breakdown. I don't know how many of you know this. I can't remember if I've talked about it on the podcast before. I am a software developer in my day job. And so bugs are a natural part of life. Like, whenever somebody comes at me and says there cannot ever be any bugs in the software, I'm like, come on, and that's not realistic. So initial reaction to this was, man, this is a bad one, but bugs happen. You gotta, response should have been better, it should have been caught, etc. But I hear a lot of, or I've seen a lot of, if a bug gets in the software, like, we need a plan. Like, how did this happen? We got to go review all this. How did this happen? What are you going to do to fix it? And it always kind of boils down to, I'm going to pay more attention. I'm going to test harder. And like, that's not realistic, because the bugs are, if you're seeing something that's particularly buggy, it's not usually a fault of a developer or even a development team. It's a fault of management, and it's a fault of a lack of resources, a lack of testing resources specifically. And so this article kind of dives into, like, what happened here, what led to this, that isn't just bad developers bad, intern coding with his eyes closed, as I've seen some jokes, which are funny. Don't get me wrong, those are funny jokes. But like what, what's a real takeaway here? And his takeaway, he talks about the layoffs that we've seen in the tech industry for the past few years, and points out that, like, when they laid all those people off and they said we can still do everything that we were doing before, they solved that with automation. And one of the reasons this bug gets out is because, the CrowdStrike writes the bug, and then they have automated testing, but they don't have manual testing.
Yeah.
And then they send it to Microsoft, and Microsoft automatically signs it, automatically tests it, automatically signs it, doesn't manually test it, and on and on and on. And so it's a flaw in the system, a lack of manpower, a requirement for speed. And so I thought it was a really interesting takeaway of not individual developer bad or the system. Like, bugs are going to happen. We're human. Programmers are human. Bugs are going to happen. You want to catch them before they get out there as much as possible. And to do that, you need good testing. And to get good testing, you have to pay good testers.
Yep.
And people don't want to do that. They want to do all this automatic testing. They want to do this AI nonsense. Yeah. And so it's kind of like don't blame individual developers. Look at what the industry is doing. And also a warning of this is going to keep happening because they're not going to suddenly start paying developers, because what they're going to do is Microsoft's going to go to CrowdStrike and say, how did you let this happen? And CrowdStrike's going to say, well, we fired that guy and everyone else has promised to test their code harder. And that's not going to solve the problem, because the real problem is a lack of manpower, because gotta make the numbers go up, and that's all that matters.
Yep. So Jeremy, what was the name of that Substack, of the newsletter?
The name of the Substack is, or at least the newsletter is, where'syourEd.at. And the name of the specific newsletter was Crowdstruck. He's got a lot of excellent stuff on there. He's got another one that I think he leaks in here, Rot Economy, another one called the Shareholder Supremacy, that really kind of breaks down like where our kind of world, excuse me for bashing my microphone with my elbow, where our world is going in this constant search to make the numbers go up, and how things are going to probably continue to fall apart the way that this happened with crowds.
Mm-hmm. See, Jeremy, we're running along, and Katie made dinner, so she's feeding me off to the side. So give me 1 second. Gotta chew.
Chew.
It's great dinner, as always, from her. All right, listen, thank you so much for that, Jeremy. We're going to go ahead and get on out of here, because now the whole house smells delicious, and I cannot focus on the Kansas City Royals anymore. I'm sorry. That is my fault.
No.
We will no Royals recap for tonight's game, so make sure you listen to this podcast. Make sure you follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your respective platform, to make sure that you never miss an episode of the Royals Rundown podcast. He is Jeremy Greco. I am Jake Milham. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and until next time, go Royals!